Hey everybody, this is Andy Sokolovich from UnleashStrengths.com. Welcome back for another episode of Thematics. Thematics is a video series created by Unleash Strengths to highlight the massive impact StrengthsFinder assessment and the book StrengthsFinder 2.0 has had on now over 11 million users. It's our belief here at Unleash Strengths that the best way to promote its effectiveness and proven results is to interview those who've experienced the power of strengths-based development firsthand. Each person being interviewed today is intimately aware of their strengths and wants nothing more than to share their story. For more information and to view a recorded version of this interview once it's over, visit UnleashStrengths.com. If you would like to be on Thematics and you want to schedule an interview, go ahead and shoot me an email, Andy, A-N-D-Y, at UnleashStrengths.com, or give us a call at 815-441-2219. Again, 815-441-2219. And as always, like everybody else, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/UnleashStrengths. Okay, now I can breathe. That's over. So today I have with me a very special guest, and Lindsay reached out to me about being on Thematics, and once I got to learn a little bit more about her and I visited her awesome website, lindsaythelifecoach.com, I thought, wow, this would be a great person to interview because she's got a great story to tell, and I love how passionate she is about personal and professional development. So, Lindsay, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and then reveal to us your top 5.
Okay. Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me today. I am a life coach for 20-somethings, so I help 20-somethings really discover who they are and aim where they want to go. The 20-something years for me were kind of filled with lots of growing pains, so I help others kind of focus themselves and get on this journey of life in a very positive way. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, and my top 5 strengths are connectedness, input, learner, individualization, and activator.
Wow. Very impressive top 5. Dallas-Fort Worth. Is it true you don't mess with Texas? Is that an accurate assessment? I mean,
that is very true, Andy. Do not mess with Texas.
What happened? So let's talk about StrengthsFinder. I mean, where did this come from? I mean, you said that you're a life coach for 20-somethings, and I think it's amazing that you're working with a niche like that. You've identified individuals that you enjoy working with, and you focused on it. But when did StrengthsFinder kind of enter your life, and why?
StrengthsFinder was introduced to me through the coaching school I was attending. It was something we had to take prior to arriving at training. And I took it about 2 months early and read my results and just kind of put it in a binder and didn't think much of it. I was kind of on a Myers-Briggs kick at the time and all into that, and I just thought, this is nothing like Myers-Briggs, and just kind of waited to see what would happen in training. So we get to training and we have a whole half day just on StrengthsFinder, and still I was kind of indifferent about it. And it wasn't until I was coached in one of the sessions in training, and I was talking about empathy and about my feelings towards people and how I was going to incorporate that in my coaching. And I went back to sit down, and one of the coaches said, it's your connectedness, and that's why you feel these feelings and have this. And then it was sparked an interest in me of, oh my gosh, I really want to know more about this and how these work and how it has made me who I am and how I can really leverage that to selling myself in some ways, or loving myself even.
Well, very cool. So since that day, this whole show is about revealing your strengths journey. Now, so you just got introduced to StrengthsFinder. You started learning a little bit more about your top 5. How are you able to apply this? I mean, you said it allowed you to kind of love yourself, or at least learn something from what you were going to do as far as facilitating coaching for others. But what is the first way that you actually use StrengthsFinder, either for yourself or to help others?
Oh, goodness. First way. I really want to say it was after that I was kind of on this strengths journey of just going into the book and the printout that I had from my results. And then I was really starting to look at how I was going to market my coaching business. And somehow I got connected with a strengths coach who was doing a specific web series on strengths selling. And so I signed up for that, and his passion for strengths and teaching me how to use my strengths to sell really intrigued me. And so from there, I bought my whole list of 34 and got into my Gallup. My input started kicking in, my learner. Got into all Gallup stuff and just been into it ever since.
Cool. Yeah, there's a massive amount of resources out there for people. I mean, it's not just StrengthsFinder 2.0, the book. I mean, Gallup has an amazing archive of information, and just the Facebook pages. Gallup's Call to Coach is one Facebook page. The other one is Gallup StrengthsFinder. Those two resources there, combined with all the people who are involved in those groups, is, you know, a priceless commodity to the strengths-based movement.
For sure.
So what was your first strengths aha moment? Now, we identify the aha moment really the first time you kind of, and I think maybe you alluded to it a little bit in the past when you talked about your connectedness, but that first time you realized, hey, there's some traction to this whole thing. This is actually real. This isn't just a broad identifier of who I am as an individual. This is a very kind of targeted, unique assessment, and it's really just about me.
Well, really, when I sat down and I started looking at all my strengths, and, you know, as I said, I was on this Myers-Briggs kick of, really, I saw the Myers-Briggs as this big book, but my strengths were the chapters in the book. And so I was able to really have some concrete language to talk about what made me special. Especially with the individualization of, I'd always have these feelings and these intuitions I had about people, but knowing that that was something I was really good at and that I could communicate to people of that I can help you figure out who you are, and kind of have this assessment to back me up really helped in that.
Yeah, that's where you and I, you know, we would create a great strengths partnership because and I identified this just the other day and I brought it up in the last episode of Thematics, but I quickly realized that when I'm placed in front of somebody, like a one-on-one scenario in a coaching session, that is hard for me. And I do much better in a large group format. Because it's not that I don't care or have a desire, obviously, to help that one, because I do as a coach. But that's more difficult for me than if I was talking to a group of 100, because I think all those ones that your top 5 are way low on my 34. But it's interesting how we just communicate differently, and that's what I love about StrengthsFinder. It's just a dominating communication tool.
Yeah, for sure. You're high in woo and communication, right?
Yep. Top.
Yep. Yeah.
Strategic, futuristic, woo, ideation, and communication.
Okay.
So I have a lot of ideas, and it's hard for me to shut up. I guess that's what that means. So how do you use StrengthsFinder in your business every day? So tell me a little bit how you integrated StrengthsFinder in the assessment into your business and to help with your clients.
So the process that I teach is called Mindset for Success, and it's a multiple month process, and in that process we go into some limiting beliefs and kind of some unconscious things, and we get over some past hurts, and then it becomes this huge buildup of, here's all the things that make you really great. Those are things from your past that now you know how to overcome, but here's the things that make you really special and really unique, and it gives the client some tools and some communication points of how they can start to, in essence, sell themselves, whether that be a job or in a relationship, or just have a confidence within themselves and start to really love themselves. That's my big thing in coaching, is I want to cultivate self-love in people and them really loving themselves. So I think StrengthsFinder can really give you some language and concrete evidence to that.
Yeah, I saw something on your website, and it's under the benefits for clients section, and you use under here's what I can help you accomplish, and I love this terminology you used, helping you see your identity capital so you can develop your personal narrative for job interviews and even dating with an exclamation point. But I love that identity capital. I think that's amazing. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so that's actually a term I took from The Defining Decade. It's a book by Dr. Meg Jay, focusing on 20-somethings. she talked about this identity capital of really knowing who you are so that you can not only aim yourself in the right direction, but also, as I keep saying, sell yourself of, hey, this is what makes me really great. And I think when you have that confidence, it's not like you have an armor where you're blocking yourself, but you have this armor where you're building yourself up. And I think a lot of people, and especially 20-somethings, struggle with that of they don't know what makes them great.
Yeah. 20-somethings, and then I'll use myself as an example. I got out of the military after 11 and a half years of active duty service, and somebody posed the question to me in the first couple of weeks that I was out, so what are you good at? And I want blank, and that was the first time I realized I have no idea. I mean, after a decade of being told what to wear and how to cut my hair and, you know, when to be someplace, I lost any kind of individual perspective on who I was as me, Andy, and what I was good at. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you're doing that. I really like that identity capital. I'll have to read that book as well.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So I always like to ask this question too. What if, so somebody's sitting down and taking you, well, you're a coach, so you probably deal with this, but somebody just sat down, they took their assessment, they got their top 5, now they're sitting there and they're kind of scratching their head and they're saying, okay, now what? What is some recommendations or some actions that somebody could take really to start applying what they've just learned from their top 5 rather than just sitting there wondering what's next?
So whenever I sit down with my clients and we talk about strengths, I give them some of the different write-ups and stuff that I have. And obviously we talk through all of that. And I think that excites people is to really talk about it and to have, at this point I've coached with them for a couple months, so I'm able to kind of see their strengths before they even see them. And I can give them patterns in their life of, hey, remember when this happened? Just like what happened with me with the connectedness of, hey, you know that's your connectedness, right? That why you have issues with empathy at times. And so I can start to show them that past pattern that they have in regards to strengths. But then also a big thing of the process that I teach is that they have to write every day. And so some writing exercises of, okay, let's start thinking about this specific strength and how you've seen it in your life or how you see it in every day, and just starting to fine tune it. Because as you probably know, Andy, when strengths get in overdrive, they can drain you as well. Like I know when my activator is in overdrive, it's just like, I just want to do everything all the time. And now that I'm aware of it, I can really kind of hone it and move it in a way that's productive.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And for me, it's my ideation. When that goes into overdrive, you know, that 8-pound thing that sits above my shoulders, my head, my brain doesn't want to ever stop. And I just keep, whether it's, I'm not physically moving, but mentally, I'm just firing on all cylinders. And sometimes it's even hard to kind of throttle back and just relax.
Yeah.
So how long are you coaching somebody before you actually introduce them to StrengthsFinder?
I think it's probably about 4 months.
Wow.
It varies in the time, but right now it's about 4 months, and then we start building up. Because it takes us a while to kind of go into past stuff and really define who you aren't and then into who you are.
No, I like that approach. I think that's really neat because, you know, myself, I just kind of jump right into it. And I will say, we defined this a few episodes ago, that strengths, the concept of strengths-based development, to some can be a little, and the woman actually used the term corny, just because I think it's the reason some people have an aversion to it is because it's so simple. They're thinking, how can this be effective? It's a simple concept. How can this possibly help me, you know, grow within myself or my business or my family? But I like that you take the time to kind of, not only are you building that person up, you're identifying what they aren't, but you're getting to know them and you're building up that trust. So when you introduce an assessment, they maybe are not on the defense so much.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you say that sometimes there's a backlash with StrengthsFinder. I remember when I first took it, I thought the same thing, was like, it felt very Pollyanna-like, of just...
There you go.
Just real, I mean, I don't know, and I have a big inner critic that I was working through too, of like, oh yeah, we're just going to focus on my strengths, whatever. Yeah. And so then when it started shifting and that critic started diminishing and this voice of like, okay, I'm really going to love myself, was when StrengthsFinder really started to set in of, of what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I think it really, the person has to definitely be in the right mindset for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can take anywhere from, 5 days to 5 months to get into that mindset. I
Yeah.
recently just coached a group, and the one guy was sitting back and going, "So you want me just to focus on my strengths and ignore my weaknesses?" And we just got done discussing the whole concept of learning to manage your weaknesses and developing partnerships. But
Hmm.
still, I mean, that initial opinion is, or that initial thought is, how could I ever just concentrate on what I do well and forget about what I'm weak at? And that's not the concept that we're trying to teach.
Yeah. I think we've all just been conditioned in our lives of, oh, you should be better at this, be better at this. It's that critic,
Hmm.
perfectionist thing. And the reality is like, no, let's just be really, really good at what we're naturally good at.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I like to ask this question as well. Out of your top five, which is your favorite and why? There's no wrong answer or right
I know,
answer, so.
every day I'll go back and forth about which one I'm loving the most. I feel like it's children,
Mhm.
you love them all, but they all have their moments.
Right.
Um, I'm really loving Learner right now for some reason, and I think because it was on Theme Thursday recently, and so I kind of got more information about it. But there's an excitement with being a learner, and it was talked about on that podcast that it's like a runner's high of a learner's high, and I feel like that's a huge drive that gets me up in the morning of what else can I learn today, and that's what I love about my job is that I get to learn about people and learn about different things, and there's always more things that I get to explore and take in. So it's exciting to be a learner, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of resources out there these days is infinite. I mean,
Yeah.
learners probably tap into YouTube quite often and try to soak up some new information because
Yeah.
it's out there. And how cool is that, though? I mean, people
Oh yeah.
sometimes complain about technology, but for those who have a desire to learn and want to learn something new every day or multiple things a day, the internet, having all that information at your fingertips is amazing.
Mhm.
So people always crack me up when they say, "Well, I want to learn more about that." I'm like, Google it. That's how you're going to learn more about that. Stop coming up with excuses.
Yeah.
So, looking back, do you feel like, and this question is very introspective and it gets everybody kind of tapping their head, thinking a little bit, if StrengthsFinder never kind of entered your life, nobody ever came up to you and said, "Oh, that's connectedness," how do you
Mhm.
think your life would be different today?
Whenever I was in this whole coaching process and going through training and also getting coached myself, I was really at a point, I was in a big transition. I had just come out of a really heartbreaking divorce, and it was a big wake-up call for me of I'm sick of not loving myself. I'm sick of compromising who I am, and I want to be on a path that I've always wanted, and I want to start having confidence. Um, and so StrengthsFinder came at a really good time for me, and that I really wanted that. I was craving it. I just didn't, even, when it's presented to me in a packet, I didn't know really what I was looking at. So I really think that's why what makes coaching so great is that someone can sit down and kind of handhold you through the whole thing. And so for that, it's completely changed my life. It's given me extreme confidence, especially as I'm launching this business and taking on clients and allowing them to see what makes them so great. I just feel like StrengthsFinder really gives people concrete evidence of things that make them great. I think it also cultivates love in other people too. Like my boyfriend's very high and futuristic, which I know you can relate to, Andy, and so
Mhm.
he's constantly in the future a lot. And knowing that about him, I can accept and love that. Versus if I didn't, my inner critic might come out and be like, "Why are we always talking about this?" Versus I can cultivate and really love that about him, and that's something that we can kind of share in, I think.
No, you're spot on. I mean, you're right. It allows you to identify traits in others that, um, for lack of a better term, may have been causing some kind of resistance or friction between two individuals,
Mhm.
especially in a relationship. But once you can identify them and look through the lens of strengths and realize that, hey, that's a talent. Like they can do
Yeah.
something that I can't. Then you kind of can learn to embrace that, and it really helps blossom any relationship. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about it.
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, this has been a great interview. I'm excited for you and your new business. I'm excited to
Thank
see
you.
what you're going to do in the future. But before we close out this interview, do you have any comments or anything that you would like to tell our audience? Give them your website again and let them know how they can
Sure.
get in contact with you if they want to hear more about what you have to say or your coaching business.
Sure. So my website is Lindsay, spelled with an A, Lindsay, thelifecoach.com. And I coach primarily 20-somethings, but it's not limited to that. It's really just people who are really trying to discover themselves on a deep level and really want to aim themselves with purpose in their lives. And StrengthsFinder is an awesome tool that I use in that business, and I'm a huge strength addict. I love how you use that word, Andy. And it was great getting to come here and talk today about strengths.
Well, thank you for being on the show, and you are welcome back anytime you would like. The door is always open.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, it was very nice talking to you, and hopefully we can do this soon. Thanks for joining me on the show. As always, this is your host, Andy Sokolovich. That's it for this episode of Thematics. It was episode number 11 already. That is crazy. Remember, if you want to be a guest or you want to recommend somebody that we should interview, somebody that has a burning desire just to talk strengths, send them my way. Have them email Andy, A-N-D-Y, at UnleashStrengths.com. Again, that's Andy at UnleashStrengths.com. Or pick up the phone and call me, 815-441-2219. Again, 815-441-2219. That's it for this episode. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.